Hello and welcome to Encounters. On today's show, we're going to be joined by two guests who are going to share their experiences about how life and faith for them cross over. Our first guest today is Steve Cree, a local beekeeper in Mansfield. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
So, Steve, maybe you could tell us, how did you get into beekeeping?
Beekeeping is a hobby that I've had an interest in for a long, long time. But because of my work commitments, I couldn't give the time. But a few years ago, I got reinterested in it, and I found a colleague who was a scout leader who was also a beekeeper, and he decided, or he agreed to be my mentor, and that's when I got into beekeeping. And I just started with the one hive.
That's amazing. So what's so fascinating about bees? Why are they so important?
Bees are so very important to our pollination of our foods and our flowers and things like that, because without the bees, then we would be having to pollinate a lot of the things ourselves with just a little paintbrush. So bees are such important pollinators, and I just love the work that they do.
And we were talking about, Ella, you said that there are benefits to bees as far as your own health goes as well.
There are benefits, actually, yes. One of the best benefits is your local honey. The nearer you live to a beekeeper, the better the honey, because it has all the pollens and things like that in, which are very good if you've got asthma or hay fever or anything like that. The other thing about it is a lot of people are frightened of bee stings. Please don't be frightened of bee stings, because I can assure you that a few years ago I actually used to have arthritis in my left knee, and since I've been beekeeping and had the occasional sting, and I had one only just a week ago. No, don't pull a face, Danny. I had one a week ago, but I don't suffer arthritis now, because in actual fact, in America, they actually sell bee stings for treatment for arthritis.
I did not know that, and being someone that's actually never been stung before, that's actually quite a relief for me to know that actually there are benefits to it.
There are benefits. But of course, the one thing about it is if you do get stung, the best thing is if you've got a credit card or a card similar to that, just scrape the bee sting if it's still in. Just scrape the bee sting in the way that the sting's gone in, just scrape it back out. Don't touch it or squeeze it, because that's the worst thing you can do.
Wow, that's a very handy piece of information for us should we ever receive a sting. So you said you started off with just the one hive. How many have you got now?
At the moment I have got 8 hives. I've got 8 hives. Some of those have been from swarms that I've collected. Some of those have been what I've actually built myself when I found a spare queen cell in a hive, because you can't have 2 queens in a hive. So it's a case of moving the queen cell and a few bees into another empty hive and letting that build itself up into another colony.
That's amazing. So have people called you out to help dealing with their bee situations if they've found a swarm near them?
Yes, I've been called quite a few times. I've even been out as far as Collingham for one call, where we actually took the bricks out of an old church hall or school in order to get into the hive that had been created in the wall of this building.
That's fascinating. And smoke, is smoke a calming thing? I sometimes hear people talking about smoke. How does that help the bees?
Yes, smoke is classed as a calming influence upon the bees. You need to consider that the bees are actually a wild creature, but we've domesticated them, but they are a wild creature. And if they get the smell of the smoke, they have the belief that there is a forest fire, because that's where they mainly live, or used to live, was in forests. And if they had the smell of the smoke, then what happened was they naturally go and get as much of the honey off the hive as they possibly can in order to be ready to fly. However, because they've got so much honey inside them, they're a little bit too weighty to fly, so they calm down a bit. That's how it technically works.
Well, that's again something I didn't know, so that's fascinating. And am I right in thinking, unlike wasps, bees really are very reluctant to sting people because obviously it's not very good for them as a result, is it?
No, it isn't, because the sting tears out of the bee, and as a result it fetches the inside of the stomach out and it kills the bee. However, they're not reluctant to sting you unless you attack them. I was stung the other day, and that was my own fault. I got into the beehive without my bee suit on, and I disturbed the bees, and naturally they came out and said, "Clear off, Steve," you know. And unfortunately one stung me, but I haven't got any arthritis, so I was happy that I've been stung.
So you say you've had chances to have discussions with people, whether it's going to help them out or just people, I guess, naturally curious in what you do with bees. So has this give you opportunity to talk about your faith along with that?
I do sometimes talk about my faith along that, but normally when I get called out, it's a case of, "Can you move these bees? I'm frightened of them." And there's no need to be frightened of bees, you know. Bumblebees are the biggest thing that people are frightened of, and yet they're the ones less likely to sting you. And again, they are pollinators and things. But no, I possibly haven't had the chance that I would like to have to talk about my faith, because that's important. Because if we think about our faith, we know that the bees go back to the Old Testament, to the beginning of the Bible. And I just wish people could, you know, find some of the wonderful stories in the Bible that's available to them.
So how has your understanding of bees and working with them enriched your faith?
I think the beauty of it comes in the fact of creation. And in that hive, at the height of summer, can be possibly somewhere between 50 and 90,000 bees.
That's incredible.
In that one hive, and one queen. The queen can be laying up to 1,000 bees a day, or 1,000 eggs a day.
Gosh.
It's unbelievable, but it's the beauty of the creation and the fact that they're going out to help God's wonderful creation with the flowers and the fruits and the vegetables. It really is wonderful to think that, and that these bees have been in the world since God created the world.
It is an incredible thing, isn't it? And
It
just
is.
the intricacy of it all and how it all fits together in the larger span. And I guess we can appreciate that about all parts of creation, can't we? And where we fit in
Yes.
as caretakers to the world as well,
I
in that
think you're-
special role in the beginning of time.
You're right there, Danny, yes. And that's what we are. We're actually caretakers. We call ourselves beekeepers, but possibly we're more bee shepherds. But it's important that we keep the hive well maintained, we keep it clean as best as we can. And it's hive maintenance really, and hive cleanliness that's important. And that's how we get good honey and things like that.
Yeah, and I guess as Christians, we are caretakers in a different way, aren't we, of each other and those we love and care about and share our lives with.
Quite so, yes.
Well, Steve, it's been wonderful to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Okay, thank you.
Second guest to join me today is Clare Harris, and she's the manager of the Emily Harris Foundation. Welcome, Clare.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So, the Emily Harris Foundation, how did it start?
Well, Emily was my first daughter, mine and my husband's first daughter. She was born in 2006, and we knew right from my pregnancy that Emily had some health problems. So she was born early with a serious heart condition and spent much of her, what turned out to be her short life, in the neonatal unit at Kingsmill Hospital. After Emily died at the age of 5 months, we kind of wanted to do something to say thank you to the unit for all the care that they'd given to us. We were so impressed with the care that we'd been given. So we raised a bit of money for them, and they were incredibly grateful. And it started us thinking, maybe there's something more that we could be doing. They're obviously in need of some support. So we decided we'd look at the idea of setting up a charity in Emily's memory to continue to support the neonatal unit. And we're still here, however many years later.
That's amazing. So what does the actual foundation do now then to support the unit and the families on the unit?
Okay, so the main aim of the charity is to make life a little bit easier for families that find themselves on the neonatal unit with a baby there. So we have two kind of aims really. One is to support the families and one is to support the staff. We do that in loads of practical ways, really. That's the main focus. So for families, for example, everybody that comes onto the unit with a baby will be given an Emily Harris Foundation welcome pack. And that will contain a packet of nappies, a blanket, some bibs, some cotton wool, a little scented heart, and some information about the charity on a diary that the parents can write in while they're going through their journey. We'll also provide bus tokens, so if parents are travelling to visit their baby on the bus, we will pay for that travel for them so that they don't have to have that expense. We give meal vouchers for the restaurant in the hospital and also for a local pub so that parents can go out and get a meal and have a bit of a break. We pay for a counsellor to go onto the unit who is there to offer additional psychological support to parents, because obviously it's quite a stressful time, so some of them need that little bit extra input. And then kind of things like there's an area in the unit of flats, so there's 2 or 3 flats that parents can stay in when either they're kind of getting ready to go home or if mum's breastfeeding and she needs to be there all the time to help with baby. And we'll buy bedding and things to make the flats area a little bit more comfortable. Like I say, it's really just about making life a little bit easier in what is a very stressful situation. The second aspect is the way that we support staff. So we'll fund any training that they might want to go on that isn't funded by the NHS. And we provide them all with a little book when they first start on the unit called Pocket Neonatology, which is just it's like their Bible, if you like. So it kind of gives them all the information that they need for looking after the babies. And they'll just contact us if there's anything that they feel they want. We're providing some food over the Christmas period when the hospital restaurants are closed. So we'll ensure that staff get a meal on the days that they're working over Christmas. So yeah, just wherever the hospital see a need, we'll try and meet that need.
That's amazing. Obviously, this has been born out of personal experience for you and your family, and the personal touch is very important to you. So I know you are a big fan of cake, and you can bake. So you've put that skill to good use, haven't you, on a Wednesday mornings?
Yes, I was very keen. I was very fortunate about 3 years ago to be able to stop the work that I was doing at that time and devote my time fully to the Emily Harris Foundation. So it's now my job, and it enabled me to be able to spend time actually in the unit, which is something that I was quite keen to do, to kind of build those connections with families. So I started Cake and Chat because I honestly think cake is the answer to everything, isn't it? You know, if you're stressed, have a piece of cake. It works wonders. So I go in for a couple of hours on a Wednesday morning. I sit in the flats area with cake, and I'm there just for the parents to come and talk about whatever they want to talk about. And some of them may want to talk about their experiences. They may want to just kind of offload, if you like, talk about how stressed they're feeling. They may just want to talk about something completely different, but I'm there for whatever reason they want to talk. And I do think, because I've had that experience, albeit quite a number of years ago now, it just helps them to know that somebody's been in that situation. You know, the staff are absolutely fantastic on the unit and they will always give you time to speak, but yeah, I know when I was there, you sort of didn't feel like you wanted to take up the nurse's time, or you felt like your questions were perhaps a bit silly, or you didn't want them to think you were saying the same thing over and over again, and your anxieties were the same thing. So to have somebody else there that can just go, actually, that's completely normal, and you know what you're feeling will end. You know, you will get through this journey, is kind of quite good for the parents, I think. So yeah, we sit and eat cake and chat.
It's amazing. I love a bit of cake, so I'm
Absolutely.
with you on that one. Now, obviously, we are going through and have been going through a really difficult time for parents, especially on the unit, being able to visit babies and things like that. And technology, we have found, has come on leaps and bounds over time. And they are actually using a particular type of technology on the unit now, aren't they, to help keep that connection for families who can't be on the unit and checking on their baby. Maybe you could tell us about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely. They're doing something called Create. So Create are a company that developed technology that enables parents to download an app on their smartphone. The staff on the unit then have an iPad that they can take photographs or video of baby on, and that securely gets sent to the app on that parent's phone where they can log in and see the photograph or the video footage of their baby. It's very, very well received by parents, as you can imagine. You know, they just love it, and the feedback that we often get is, you know, it's just amazing. You know, if they've gone home for the night, or not all parents can stay. As I say, the flats are only there for a certain number of parents, so most parents do have to go home at night. And when they do, that is the hardest thing. And I remember with Emily, it was the hardest thing to have to leave her and go home at night. And you kind of wake up in the middle of the night and you're thinking, oh, I hope they're okay. And now, again, the hospital are fantastic. You can ring any time and check in. But hearing a nurse saying your baby's fine is one thing, but seeing a video of them kind of content and asleep or having a feed or having their nappy changed is just something else. And it's very reassuring for parents to receive that. And I think you alluded to the whole kind of coronavirus pandemic thing. It was a very difficult time on the unit, as it has been for everywhere, but particularly for dads, because there was a period during the first lockdown where they couldn't have any visitors on the unit at all. So mum could stay with baby, but nobody else could visit at all. They're still restricted to just parents. There can be no siblings or other family members. So what VCreate enabled them to do was to send video and photograph footage home so that, you know, dad could see that, and also that can be then shared with other family members. Once baby's discharged, that's all deleted from the hospital system, but the family get to keep it, so they have those memories forever. And we're very proud to sponsor VCreate and to be able to pay for that to enable the hospital to keep doing it. So.
That's incredible. Now, obviously, the charity's been going quite some time now, and you have built up a community, haven't you, over this time? So you have people that are supporting you and sponsoring you because you are a charity, but obviously you need to fundraise. So what are some of the things that you do to help fundraise for your charity and allow people in the community to get involved and support you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, we are very, very lucky. I consider ourselves to be very lucky. We have a huge supporter base. It kind of builds up over time. I think because of the nature of what we do, we're constantly supporting different families. And very often a family will have received something from us, or they'll have had some support, and they then want to go on and raise some money for us. We don't get any core funding from anywhere. So we're totally reliant as a charity on fundraising, on the goodwill and the generosity of our supporters. So we do get a lot of fundraising in from other people. As you say, over the years, we've developed a good core of supporters, both family, friends and people that we've supported. As a charity, we do like to put on our own events every now and again. We like to arrange things purely because I think it's what we should be doing. We should be seen to raise some money for ourselves as well, but it's a good way to connect with our supporters. So during what I would say normal times, we would hold things like race nights and meals out. Food's a bit of a common theme with us, I have to say. So we've done curry nights and meals out at local restaurants to raise money that way. But we've had to obviously think a little bit more creatively over the last few months. So our most recent fundraiser was actually a virtual balloon race. So we encouraged people to sign up and buy a balloon for £3, and then this very clever computer system that I know nothing about, but we just signed up for, then calculates how far your balloon would have travelled in a period of 7 days, and we offered prizes to the people whose balloons travelled the furthest. So it was quite a fun way to connect with people in a very safe, and because it was virtual, environmentally friendly way, and raised about £700. So we were very pleased with that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And brilliant thinking outside the box in this time as well. So, as you said right at the very beginning, this has come out of personal experience for you and your family. So how has setting up the foundation in Emily's memory and everything that you've been able to do through that, but also at that very difficult time right at the beginning, how has your faith helped you in that?
I think our faith has been central to what we've done, if I'm honest. I think... finding out very early on when I was pregnant with Emily that there was a problem, it shatters all those sort of expectations, if you like. She was our first baby. We went along to our scan expecting everything to be absolutely fine. We hadn't had any experience through any other friends or family members of people having difficulties with babies. So, you just kind of go along thinking, it's all going to be fine. And then you're dealt this kind of massive blow that, your baby's heart isn't developed properly and they didn't even know whether she would survive the pregnancy. And you kind of it really sort of takes you back and you're thinking, whoa, that really wasn't what I was expecting. And I think that is really hard to deal with. But what my faith does is kind of give me a bigger picture, if you like, and a sense of there's more to this. This is out of my control. I believe that God is in control of my life, that he has a plan. And whilst that is not necessarily a plan that I don't have any control over, it is one that he is totally in control of. So there's an element of being able to go, do you know what? This has happened. It's devastating. But we're just going to have some faith and some trust that something good's going to come out of it. And actually, there were amazing things that happened during pregnancy and following Emily's birth that we totally believe were because, there was God intended her to live for a short period of time at least so that we could then go on and do what we've done. She could have died in pregnancy and I guess we would never have done this. We could have... There were healing things that were happening that we couldn't explain, and she was far stronger when she was born than anybody expected. So I think, all the way through, it's having that ability to go, do you know what? this is out of our control, and we just have to believe that there's some purpose to this. And, we were very blessed to have Emily for 5 months, and, we have those wonderful memories with her. Obviously, don't get me wrong, I would love to still have her now, and there are days when I get very angry and I get very cross, and I kind of, and I get angry with God and go, what on earth did this happen for? What have you done this for? And it's flippant to say, oh, but if, we wouldn't have done the charity and we're doing all this good stuff. And we are, and that is kind of the central tenet, if you like, of why we do it. But it doesn't stop you from thinking, yeah, but I'd rather have her than the charity. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think, it does, we do have this sense that everything happens for a reason. And we wanted very, very definitely for Emily's life to have some purpose beyond her death, if you like. And therefore the charity kind of is born out of that idea that we want to help other people that are going through a similar situation because we believe that's the right thing to do. I think the other important thing about my faith is that I don't believe that death is the end. So although I'm not with Emily now, and I hope, God willing, I will be around for a long time and still won't be with her, but one day, I will see her again. And that's, that's hope that we live for, really. So.
That's incredible. So you mentioned earlier that obviously families can come to a place, especially if mums are breastfeeding, things like that, etc. So how do you find when you are having those conversations with those families? Do you ever feel prompted and guided because of your own personal experience and your faith in how you can support them and nurture them in those conversations when obviously they're in a really difficult place?
I would say it's rare that I would find the opportunity to talk explicitly about my faith. I'm very conscious that the charity, whilst it's run by a Christian family, is not technically a Christian charity. So we don't necessarily want to be throwing that in people's faces, if you like. As much as it's very important to us, it's not something that necessarily other people feel comfortable with. So I'm very much guided by what they talk to me about. And obviously, if somebody is asking questions that are very much more direct about that, and I have said to people, I'm a Christian and part of this is because of, we do this partly because of my faith. But it's rare, I guess, that it comes out so explicitly. So for me, it's about kind of doing what I believe Jesus would do in that situation. And that isn't always about kind of telling them I'm a Christian. It's just about acting as I know that as a Christian I should act. And I do pray for the families. I do pray for the babies. I pray before I go in to Cake and Chat that, if people are around, that they'll come and talk to me, that I'll be guided by what I say to them. So I do believe it's kind of, for me, I'm conscious of it, but it isn't necessarily something that I would be explicit about with the families themselves.
So obviously times have been very different, and obviously social media has been a central part of how we've been able to stay connected. How has that helped you stay connected with the community? But also, I guess, giving a point of reference for the families who have been on the unit to then have somewhere as a follow-up almost, because obviously they're going to go home, but their journey doesn't stop just because they've left the unit. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, social media is fantastic, isn't it? It's definitely the world we live in these days, and we've had to learn very quickly to get on board with all of that, and I'm constantly kind of looking at new ways of being able to use social media to advertise both what the charity does, but to offer support to families. So we're very active on Facebook, on Twitter. We have an Instagram account, although I'm less confident with that, and recently set up a LinkedIn account, which is totally new to me, so I'm well lost with that one, but I'm learning as I go. But our Facebook page particularly creates a good support basis for the families, so they can contact us through there, and very often I get messages quite frequently through that page. The parents also have their own kind of Facebook group called Mini Miracles, which is for any families that have been on the unit, which I'm also a member of. And that's a great support for them because they can share stories with each other and they can ask questions. Because you're absolutely right, that neonatal journey is just a very small part of their life. And no matter whether they've spent a few days or a few months on the unit, it very much defines the early days of their baby's life. And when they go home, that's always going to be different. Their experience is still very different to anybody who's had a baby and just gone home because baby's well, and that's fine. So I think having that connection and knowing that there's somebody there that's been through a similar experience is really beneficial to the parents, because they can have somewhere to go and say, is this normal? Is this okay? Do I need to be worried? And just to build up that support with each other, really. And it's great for us if they come back to us, because we like to hear how their babies are getting on. I love nothing more than receiving a photograph of a very healthy toddler who's, been on the unit 2 or 3 years ago, that I remember chatting to mum, having cake and, worrying if he'll make it through the night. So it's wonderful to see these stories of babies that are just go on and thrive, and it's a credit to their families and to the unit.
That's amazing, and what a wonderful moment for you to be able to see actually that things have continued and life has gone on so well for them after such a difficult time.
Absolutely. I think it's really important to say, our experience is very rare. We sadly lost Emily, but the vast majority of babies that go through the unit do go on and be, and they're perfectly healthy children. And I always say that to the parents if they're kind of looking a bit anxious at me. I'm like, believe me, we were very rare. Your baby is highly likely to be perfectly fine. And, they kind of like that reassurance, really. So.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with us and share the amazing work the Emily Harris Foundation is doing.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we hope you enjoyed today's show. A massive thank you to both Steve and Claire for joining us today. So, we hope to see you next time for our next encounter.